Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to try something a little different. I mean, it's still Arduino and electronics and programming, but today is something for the kids. An Arduino project aimed at kids. So if you've got a youngster that you want to get involved with Arduino, maybe have them watch this video and see how it goes. Of course, if you're a beginner and don't know much about Arduino, then this is probably going to work out well for you too. If you're an advanced guy, you might want to skip this one. It's going to be pretty simple. So with that being said, let's get into this. All right, our project for today is going to be a very simple temperature sensor, basically a digital thermometer. And I'm going to make this as easy as I can for you young guys and girls out there who want to get into this but don't have much experience. So what you're going to need for this project are just a few very simple parts. You are going to need an Arduino, and it can be an Uno, a Nano, a Mega. It really doesn't matter. In this case, I'm going to use a Nano, and if you're using an Uno, that'll work out great because the pins are going to work exactly the same. You're going to need a 16:2 LCD display and one of these kinds of temperature sensors. These are called DHT sensors. The blue one is a DHT11, the white one is a DHT22. They work in the exact same fashion. The DHT22 is a little bit more sensitive, but either one will work out just fine. You're going to need what's called a potentiometer. Now this one is a little trimmer potentiometer. It's really small, but if you don't have one of those, you can easily use a bigger one like this. This one's actually 50K. You probably want to use around a 5 or a 10K for our purposes, but either way it will work. And then you're going to need some wires, whether they're pre-made jumper wires or just some wires you stripped yourself. And if they are wires you stripped yourself, 22 gauge solid core is where you want to be. All right. So let's put everything on our breadboard and get started. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is just put the Arduino in the breadboard. Now if you're using an Uno, it doesn't go into a breadboard. And I just pushed it in over top of the gap so that there are pins on one side and pins on the other. If you're new to using a breadboard, all these rows of pins on each side are connected together, but they are not connected across the gap. And the pins in these power rails on the top and bottom are connected across horizontally. So there's that. Next, we are going to plug in our LCD display, like that. And then we're going to need to plug in our DHT sensor. Now, if you have one of these that's on a little board like this, and it has a little teeny tiny resistor, that's all you're going to need. If you have one like this one that is not on a board, you're going to need what's called a pull-up resistor, and 10K is the usual value for that. And if you look at the resistor here, try and get this to focus. Come on. There we go. Brown, black, black, red. 10020. That's 10K. That's the value you want to use for a pull-up resistor. So we will plug in our DHT22 here. These go like this: pin 1, 2, 3, 4. Pin 1 is your plus 5 volts, pin 2 is your data, and you want to have your resistor between these two pins. So I'm just going to plug it in like this. And then I'm going to take my resistor and put it between pins 1 and 2. Just like that. Okay. And the final thing that we need to plug into the board is our potentiometer. I'm going to plug it in like this. Now we have all the hardware plugged in. Next, we need to wire everything up. Okay, to wire everything up, we're going to use this top rail with the red plus and the blue minus as our power rail. And what we're going to start out with is the ground pin from the Arduino going to the ground or the blue line up there like that. Now everything needs to be grounded and all of our grounds need to go together. So next up is our 16 by 2 LCD display, and on that VSS is ground, so we'll plug in another ground link between VSS and ground, just like that. Next up is our potentiometer. It also needs a ground link. So from one of the outside pins, it really doesn't matter which one, we also need to go to ground. And our final ground link is on the DHT sensor, and it is pin 4. So if we count over 1, 2, 3, we skip, and 4. Get that guy plugged in there. All right, all of our grounds are connected. You see how they're all connected in a line, and that line goes back to the Arduino. So everything is connected together. Next, we're going to connect up our power. So to connect our power, we'll start again with the Arduino. Let's zoom in here a little closer. Make sure we're nice and focused. And we're going to start with the 5-volt line from the Arduino going to the red, just like that. Next up is our display, and on this one we're going to connect VDD to the red. I can get them. There we go. Now, on the LCD display, there are 2 more pins we need to connect up, the A and K at the end. The K is cathode, that goes to ground. I left that out earlier, I'm very sorry. And the A is anode, and that goes to our plus 5 volts. All right, just like that. Next, we need 5 volts for our potentiometer. And that goes in just like that. And we need 5 volts for the DHT sensor, and that goes to pin 1 of the DHT sensor. So now we have our DHT connected to positive and ground, our potentiometer connected to positive and ground, our LCD connected to positive and ground, the light for the LCD connected to positive and ground, and our Arduino connected to positive and ground. So all of our power connections are now made. Next, we need to do our data connections. All right, let's begin with our data connections. And these are what are going to pass the data characters from the Arduino to the screen. So we're going to start with D7. on the LCD, and that goes to pin 2 on our Arduino. Next we got D6, and that goes to pin 3. And then we have D5, and that goes to pin 4, but look at that, not quite going to reach. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pull these guys out. Let me zoom out here a little bit so you can see better. And we'll start with our shortest wires. So D7 to pin 2. See, that one reaches pretty good. And then D6 to pin 3. Let's see, do we have another longer wire? Yes, we do. D5 to pin 4. And D4 to pin 5 on the Arduino. So now we've hooked up our data connections, 4-wire data connections. Now, if you notice here on the LCD, there's a couple of other pins, RW, RS, VO. Now, D0 through D3 are also data pins that we're not going to be using, but some of these other pins we are going to be using. So we need to hook them up as well. All right, the first one of those we have is RW, which is read-write. And that needs to go to ground. Like that. And the second one is E. That is the enable pin. And that needs to go to pin number 11 on the Arduino, which means we're going to need another long wire. So there's E, goes to pin 11 on our Arduino. The next we have is RS, and it needs to go to pin 12, which is even longer. So I'm going to have to make a couple of wires, I think. Something to make it work. Here we go. RS goes over to pin 12. And we have one left here, and that's that V0 pin. Now that's a special pin, and that controls the contrast on the screen to allow us to see things better. So that one we are going to connect to the center pin of our potentiometer. Just like that. And then we can adjust the contrast with the potentiometer, which a lot of the time I call a pot. So you can call it that too if you want. That leaves us one data pin left to connect from our DHT sensor. And that goes to pin 2 from the DHT, and we're going to put it over here on pin 8 from the Arduino. And that's it for our hookups. Everything now is hooked up, and we're ready to roll. So let's go and write a little easy program that will allow us to put this humidity and temperature on the screen. Okay, let's talk about writing the code for our thermometer project. It's pretty simple. You bring up your Arduino window, select a new project, and this is what you get. Void setup and void loop. These are the two things that we need to have. But let's create a few spaces. And the first thing we need to do is include our libraries. The first one is liquid crystal. And there's no semicolon at the end of this line. The second one is DHT. Again, no semicolon. Next, we need to define a couple of pins. Our DHT pin is 8, and our DHT, our DHT type is DHT 22. All right, the next thing we need to do is declare our liquid crystal. And we're going to call it LCD. And these are the pins it's going to use. 12, 11, 5, 4, 3, 2. And now we start with our semicolons. Then we're going to declare the DHT, called lowercase DHT. And we're going to use DHT pin and DHT type. And those are the two things that we defined right up here. All right. Now we're going to move down to the setup window. And the only thing we need here is LCD.begin and the size, which is 16 wide by 2 high. And then we're going to move down to the main loop of our program. Again, we'll skip a line. This is the part that's going to occur over and over and over again. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to declare a float variable called f, and it equals DHT dot read temperature, and then in parentheses true, semicolon, and that will get us our temperature in Fahrenheit. If you want it in Celsius, just omit the true, but make sure you leave in the parentheses. Then we're going to declare a float called H for humidity. That equals DHT dot read humidity. Nothing in the parentheses. See how easy that is? Now we're going to set our cursor. So LCD dot set cursor. Of course, it helps if you spell it right. And we're going to start at the top, so 0, 0. And we're going to print out our header for the temperature. So LCD dot print parenthesis quote, because we're giving it some characters to print. Temperature period colon. I think I used 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. Another quote, and the parentheses, and a semicolon. Now this is going to print right after our header there, so LCD dot print f semicolon. So that will print the value of the float variable f. And then next we'll print our Fahrenheit, so LCD dot print and there we have our first line done, the header, the value, and the units. Then we're going to drop down a line, so we say LCD dot set cursor 0, 1, which is the second line, and we say LCD dot print humidity, space, colon space, like that, and then we say LCD print H, and LCD print, quote, the percentage sign, because humidity is relative percentage. And then, according to the data sheet, the DHT sensor needs at least 2 seconds between readings. So let's give it 3 seconds. That's 3,000 milliseconds. And that's it. That's your program. Now you can save it. Let's call this temperature on LCD. Then we can come up here once it's done saving. If it's ever done saving. There we go. Make sure we have the correct board. In this case, it's a Nano. And the correct port. In my case, it's 20. And we send it. Once it's done, we can go over and okay, so everything's uploaded, and you should see your temperature and humidity on the screen. But if you don't, and your screen looks like this, don't worry. That's what this little potentiometer here is for. You just take a flathead screwdriver and adjust it just like that until the contrast is set and you can read it and everything works great. So there you can see the temperature is 70.7 and the humidity is 43.5. Well, now it's 0.7. That's probably the water vapor in my breath affecting the sensor. So what if you want to use this without it being attached to the computer? Can you do that? Well, sure you can, and it's really simple. We'll just unplug it from the computer. We'll get one of these little 9-volt battery clips. And we're going to plug it in here. We're going to plug it into the opposite rail. So the black goes in there like that. And the red goes into the red like that. And then we're going to need one wire. Doesn't matter what color or anything. But this last pin up here on the Arduino says V in. So we connect the V in to the red so that we get the 9 volts to the Arduino. We don't want to plug it in up here and give 9 volts to our sensor. And then we'll connect the ground, the black wire, to one of the ground ports on the Arduino. And it has 2. Get a 9-volt battery, plug it in, and there you go. Now we're running from 9-volt power. Pretty cool, isn't it? That's a great first project and a great way to get started in Arduino. I hope you like this. If you did, give me a thumbs up. And feel free to comment, ask any questions, and share this with your friends and on websites you visit. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.